Welcome everyone. Today we will start with a new topic called judiciary. Judiciary is basically the legal system of the country. Now what do you understand by the legal system? The courts that are there. You must have heard about the Supreme Court, the High Courts, the district courts, the local courts. So you must have heard the name. So what do these courts do? What are their roles? What are their functions? That is what we will learn about in this particular video. Now, before we start with the functions of the court, what is the first thing that we should know? That is the term law. Okay, so what is law? Now just imagine you are going on a busy road. You are driving a car on a busy road. So what are the things that you keep in mind? That you are driving on the correct side. You are not driving in the wrong lane. You blow a horn when there is somebody in front of you. You want to overtake, you give an indicator. You want to turn, you give an indicator. And there are so many rules. If there's a red light, you'll stop. If there's a green light, you start moving ahead. All that is there. But suppose there are no rules, nothing. What happens? There'll be total chaos. People will be driving wherever they feel like. They'll be going at a very fast speed, or maybe they are driving very slowly. They'll be honking all around. There'll be accidents. So, is that desirable? No. How can that be stopped? How can we not have such a situation? Very simply by having some rules to guide us how to drive on the road. So basically, these rules, these guidelines that tell us how to behave in the society, how to live our lives, are laws. And who implements these laws? Basically, who sees that they are being implemented properly? It is the judiciary or the courts. Now, there are various functions of the judiciary. The courts have various things that they do. Now, before you go into this, you must remember that in India, there is a thing called rule of law. Now, what is rule of law? Rule of law means that every Indian citizen, every person in India is ruled by the same law. The law cannot be different for different people. It cannot be that if I am rich, the law is something else. If I'm poor, the law is something else. It just cannot be so. Even if I am the richest person in India or I am the poorest person in India, does not make a difference. If we do a crime, if we make a mistake which is against the law, then the punishment, then the penalty has to be same. We will be facing the same punishment. Okay, so this is rule of law where everyone is the same, irrespective of their money, their caste, their religion, whether they are a man or a woman. So every human being is the same in the eyes of the law. Now, keeping this in mind, the courts interpret the laws. Interpret means they try and make sense of the laws. Next thing the courts do, another very important thing, is they settle dispute. Now, what is settling dispute? Very simple. You have a fight with your neighbor, okay, regarding maybe a piece of land that you both share. Now, who will decide? You will say it's yours. The neighbor says it's his. Who will decide? It is the court. If we go to the court will look into all the evidence and they'll make an informed decision and informed judgment about who that particular land belongs to. Now, it's not just that between the individuals the court will decide the cases. No, it can be between two states. Okay, as I was saying, there can be a dispute between two states. Like there is presently a dispute going on between Maharashtra and Karnataka over water issues. Okay, so who will settle this case? Again, the courts are the ones who will decide. Again, another thing the courts will do, suppose there is a problem with the center and between center and the states, again the court decides. All right, so these are some of the functions of the court. Now, this is a picture of the Himachal High Court. Now, what is different from a court that you might have seen in a movie or a serial? How many judges can you see sitting here? There's more than one. In the movies, there's usually one judge who's sitting and taking the decision. So this is basically a full court. When there are 3, 5, maybe the whole strength of the High Court or the Supreme Court is present, the judges that is present, that is a full court, and that is called for sometimes for very serious issues, some very important matters. Here this image is basically when they were mourning the passing away of one of the Chief Justices of India. Now we've already discussed that law is a system which is basically providing us the guidelines and the basically telling us how to behave in society, and the country, throughout the country, those laws are there, and the court has to keep in mind that everyone is equal while taking a decision. Now here's a list of some of the acts and laws that Indian society is governed by. The first one is the IPC Act 1860. This was framed way back in 1860, and IPC basically stands for the Indian Penal Code. This contains all the criminal codes, all the criminal activities, all the criminal offenses that are there that a person can commit. All these come under this. For example, a case of kidnapping, murder, some offense against the security of the country, rapes, all these things are what penalty we have to face, what punishment we have to face is given in the IPC Act of 1860. Second one is the Hindu Marriage Act 1955. Now under this act, the Hindu marriages are how they have to work is there. For example, no Hindu man or a woman can marry twice as long as they have a husband. They cannot have a second marriage. If you get a divorce, if your husband or wife dies, then obviously you can marry again. But in case you are still having a wife, you or a husband, you cannot marry again. That marriage is not considered legally binding. Okay, so there are various provisions in these acts. Now we have already done the Right to Information Act 2005. Some of you must be remembering it. So Right to Information Act, as you know, we can get information from the government about the activities of any department, any government official, about any project that government has undertaken. So all these acts are there. These are just some of them. There are many more acts. So we've already discussed that one of the functions of the courts is settlement of disputes. So let's just understand it in a little more detail. Now just imagine that you go out for a wedding and you come back late at night, and what do you discover? That somebody has broken the lock of your home and they have stolen jewelry, TV, mobiles, whatever. Lots of things have been stolen from your house. So what will you do? You can't possibly go around finding the thief yourself. Okay, so what is the first step you take? You go to the police station. You go to the police and you file a complaint that, look, so and so things, this and this has happened, so and these things have been stolen from my house, and you'll give a full detail of what all has been stolen. So now the police will note down everything you are saying. They'll write down your name, your address, where you were, what happened when you came back home, what all was taken from your home, a list of things that were stolen from your home. And if you suspect somebody, if you think you know somebody who could have possibly come in and broken the lock and taken all your things, okay, so they make a report. Now what is this report called? This is called the FIR, or the First Information Report. Now what is First Information Report? You filed all the information with the police. Now based on this FIR, the police starts their investigation. They try to find out who could have done who could have been the one who stole from your house. Okay. Now, once the police has finished its investigation, they might identify a culprit. If they find a culprit, if they find some evidence that this person might have stolen things, what happens? The case goes to the court. Okay, and now what happens in the court? Obviously, we all know the judge listens to both the sides. It will listen to the culprit, who the police says is the culprit, and it will listen to the evidence that is presented by the police. Now, nobody will present the evidence themselves. They have lawyers to do this. There will be lawyers representing the state, and there will be lawyers representing the culprit. lawyer that is representing the culprit is known as the defense lawyer, and the one representing the state is known as the prosecution lawyer. Okay, the prosecutor or the prosecution lawyer. Now these people will argue based on the laws. They cannot give you any they cannot give their own opinion. They have to stick to the law. Okay, now the judge will listen to both the sides. He'll listen to the lawyer from the opposition, the defense, and from the prosecution. They'll listen to both the sides, and then based on the evidence and what he has been told, if he has no doubt that the person who's accused, he has committed the crime, he will accordingly make a decision, and he will say that, look, you are responsible for the theft. This is your punishment. You will be sent to jail, or you have to pay penalty, whatever the decision is. Now the judge cannot make a decision on anything else other than the evidence presented before him. And as I've told you, there is a main thing in India about the rule of law. Everyone is equal. Everyone has a chance to present their case. Everyone is equal in the eyes of the law. So once the decision has been made, then you can obviously go on. If you're happy with the decision, it's one thing. If you're not, you can always go and appeal to a higher court. This part of appealing to a higher court, if you're not happy with the decision of the judge, is called appellate jurisdiction. Now let us understand with one more example. This is an example of a business case. Here in this case, Radhika and Vikas, there are two people who come to an agreement that, okay, Vikas will provide some, let's say electronic things to Radhika, and Radhika will pay so and so amount to Vikas in turn for the equipment. Now Vikas provides the equipment to Radhika, but Radhika says, I will not make the payment. So when she's confronted by Vikas, she says, look, the equipment you sold me was faulty. It was not working properly. So it was of no use to me. So I will not make any payment. So obviously Vikas is not happy with this decision, and he goes to the court and he files a complaint in the court. He files a case in the court against Radhika. Now he can do this through filing a simple petition. Petition can be filed by anyone. It can be filed by an individual. It can be filed by an organization. It can be filed by a couple of individuals, a group of individuals working together. So basically, it is a request that you directly submit to the court to look into a matter. Now, because Vikas is filing the petition, he is known as the plaintiff or the petitioner. And Radhika, she has to respond. She has to answer to the petition. Okay, she has to give a response to the petition, so she is called a respondent. Now, Radhika is not very happy being a respondent, having to respond to the petition, and what happens is she gets a summon. A summon is something that the court sends to a person, and you have to answer whatever queries is there. Okay, whatever question has been asked by the court in the summons, you have to answer those. And also, if the court is saying that you have to be in a court at this particular day, at this particular time, then you have to be there. In case you ignore a summon, what happens? You can always say, why should we listen to the summons? What is there in listening to a summon? So if we ignore a summon, what happens is basically, after a couple of summons have been ignored, then the court issues a warrant in your name. Now, what happens when a warrant is issued? The police would come and arrest you and forcefully take you to the court to be present there. Now, Radhika has been asked in the summons to send a written response by a particular date. So, she has to do that. Now, based on the various proofs that have been presented by Vikas and Radhika in the case, here Vikas is saying that I provided proper equipment. Radhika is saying no, it was not proper. So after listening to both the parties, the judge takes a decision as to whether Vikas is correct or Radhika is correct. Suppose Vikas has been found to be correct, so Radhika will have to pay the amount. Maybe some fine also is imposed on Radhika. So that has to be paid. In case the court finds that Radhika is correct, the equipment was faulty, then Vikas has to pay some fine, or maybe he's given some punishment of some sort or the other. Now, an instruction that is given by the court, that is known as order. The order of the court, you have to agree to the order. But in case, as we discussed earlier, if you're not happy with the decision of the court, you can always apply to the higher court. Suppose your case is in a lower court, in a sessions court, in a district court, and you're not happy with the decision of the judge. Then you can go to the high court. If you're not happy with the decision of the high court, then you move on to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the highest body. It's the highest court. You cannot go above the Supreme Court. There's no other thing above the Supreme Court in the judicial system. So the decision of the Supreme Court is binding. Now this process of going to another court with the decision of the previous court is known as appeal, and the jurisdiction, as we said, was appellate jurisdiction. Now, what happens when you appeal to the High Court against the decision of a sessions court or a district court? So the court will basically it will look at the logic of the judge while taking the decision. No new evidence you can introduce at this time. It cannot be that you are bringing in something new in the High Court which you did not present in the sessions court, or in say in the district court. You did not present that evidence there, and you are thinking, "No, I'll bring this to the High Court." No, you cannot do that. No new evidence can be introduced in the High Court. Only the judgment and the logic that the judge used while taking the decision, that is looked into by the High Court judge. Now, similarly, when we go to the Supreme Court against the decision of a High Court, then there can be no discussion, on whether the judgment is correct or not. The only thing they'll discuss is whether the law has been implemented properly. Whatever the law is, the judge has looked into it properly. Has it been understood properly? Has it been implemented properly? Is the punishment that has been given, or the penalty that has been imposed, is that correct? Is it as per the law? So in Supreme Court, you cannot even discuss the judgment of the lower court. This picture basically shows us the hierarchy, the levels of the Indian judicial system, the various courts at which stage they are there. Okay, this can also be presented in a shape of a pyramid. At the lowest level are the district courts. Just above them are the high courts, and at the top, at the very top, at the apex, is the Supreme Court. There is nothing above the Supreme Court in the judicial system of India. There's only one Supreme Court, and that's located in New Delhi. In India, there are at present 25 high courts, and there are innumerable district courts. Now, this image is of the HP District Court as well as the HP High Court. If you go to Chakkar, you will see the District Court there, and when you are passing Triple H Hotel Holiday Home towards the mall, you will see this huge building. This is the HP High Court. Now, this is the image of Supreme Court of India, which, as we have discussed, is located in. So on this map, you can see that the Supreme Court of India is just next to Connaught Place. So in case you go to Delhi, in case you are in Delhi, do go and visit the Supreme Court of India, which is possible to do. You just have to buy a ticket and you can go and visit the Supreme Court of India. So that is about judiciary that we'll be taking up in this video. Hope you learned something new.